The Iberian lynx is an example of success in conservation biology. This medium-sized wildcat has never been widespread or abundant, but the effect of the human activity brought the species to the brink of extinction in the beginning of this century. Historically, the distribution range of this cat was small and has been restricted to Spain and Portugal. Let's remember that the smaller the geographic range of a species, the higher its risk of extinction. The number of lynxes has also never been very high, and as it usually happens with top predators that need reasonable big territory and enough prey to feed on. On top of this, the Iberian lynx is a super strict specialist, dependent on the Mediterranean oak forests and shrublands, who preys almost exclusively on rabbits to be able to establish breeding territory. Up to 90% of its diet can be made up by rabbits. Such narrow requirements is almost a guarantee of trouble, because when those resources are scarce, there is no alternative. But apart from its natural scarcity, several reasons related to human activities drove the decline of the species during the last century. A survey in the late 1980s showed that between 1960s and 1980, the species disappeared from 80% of its distribution range. The surveys were done through questionnaires by mail, and researchers covered thousands of kilometers of the species' historical range, talking to people, gathering old pictures, schools, remains, records of hunting trophies, and preserved the specimen. The species was then estimated in around 1,000 individuals and less than 315 breeding females, where with only around 50 breeding groups and breeding across an area of around 12,000 square kilometers, a bit more than the area of the island of Jamaica. Habitat loss, changes in land use caused by humans, direct prosecution, and illegal hunting too, and the increasing effect of infrastructure such as roads were among the main reasons for this decline. But a serious decrease in the number of rabbits caused by myxomatosis, a viral disease that escaped from a laboratory and spread rapidly, had a dramatic impact on the cat in the second half of the last century. A second survey at the national level in Spain was carried out in the late 1990s. The first step for a proper diagnosis of a species situation is to know how many individuals remain in the wild and where they were. This time, the survey included new technological advances available at that time to detect this elusive cat, such as DNA analysis of feces and camera traps deployed in the field. The results were even worse than expected. The decline was as strong as the previous 20 years, and the species was in the verge of disappearing. Only 6% of the surveyed geese showed evidence of the species' occurrence, and less than 200 cats and no more than 35 breeding females were estimated to be in the wild in the year 2000. The species was confined to only 2 areas, both in southern Spain, completely isolated from one another with more than 200 kilometers between them. The mountains of Cardeña and Dújar in the north, and around Doñana National Park in the south. The situation was critical, and the species was almost extinct. Because of that, the Iberian lynx was catalogued as the most threatened cat in the world by the International Union for Conservation of Nature. It was time to act without delay. From 2001, different actions were carried out, and finally a conservation program was developed to recover the species, including both measures in the wild and later a captive breeding program. The early phase of the conservation program was complicated by political and administrative difficulties. Local, regional and national governments were under different parties and interests, and that created extra barriers and issues that slowed down the Iberian lynx conservation. This delay was dangerous and nearly led to species extinction, with fewer than 100 individuals living in the wild in 2002. However, finally, the decisive action of certain people started a conservation plan that included a set of active measures to protect the species. When such measures were taken, lynx number began to grow. That was good news. And these first measures were basically directed to protect and increase the number of lynxes in the wild in those two remaining areas. And they were focusing on two main issues: reintroducing rabbits and habitat management. Measures aimed at creating an increasing rabbit population in those areas where the lynx was still left, since rabbits were the key elements in maintaining and establishing breeding territories for the Iberian lynx. In fact, the largest economic volume of the Iberian lynx conservation projects goes to the recovery of population rabbits. New structures where rabbits were released to breed were built. Vegetation and habitat structure was managed in order to create and increase rabbit populations. Rabbits were translocated from other areas, and the effects of diseases that kept reducing rabbit populations were monitored: myxomatosis and later the rabbit hemorrhagic disease. Such measures stopped the species decline, and it was encouraging news, but not enough. For a medium and long-term recovery, it was essential to establish new populations in the wild to expand the distribution range of the species, but also to increase the number of individuals and to reduce chances of that an stochastic event would eliminate one of the only two existing populations. The locations to establish this new population were those where the species had been present in recent times, but there were not enough individuals in the wild to move them to the new places without a high level of risk. So an ambitious captive program to breed individuals was set as a support tool for the recovery program of the species in its natural habitats. Two main objectives were behind the captive breeding programs. First, to produce enough healthy individuals to help restore the species in the wild by releasing animals born in captivity, both to reinforce the areas where the species was present, but also to generate new population. And second, to maintain a stock of animals viable from a health, genetic, and demographic point of view. Such a captive population acts as a safeguard against possible extinction until conditions of size and viability of the wild population have been restored. A lot of work has been done in these last decades, both in the scientific, education, administrative, political, and social sides. The captive breeding program has been very successful. Since the first calves were born in captivity in March 2005, more than 500 lynxes have been born in the small network of centers included in the program. The first juveniles were released in the wild in February 2011, and to date more than 340 individuals have been released since then. Many different measures have been taken, including studies on the species biology, campaigns to increase the public awareness and education action for the citizens inhabited the areas where the species still occurred or it was going to be reintroduced, crucial agreements with private landowners, changes in the management of game and hunting activities, action in public and private infrastructures such as roads or reservoirs to reduce the number of non-natural mortality, and even supplementary feeding, always monitoring their effectiveness and based on scientific evidence. After all the effort and funding, today the situation of the Iberian lynx has improved. The population in the wild has increased from less than 100 individuals to almost 1,400. The distribution range has increased from the two main populations registered in the worst years of the beginning of the century to the current 14 populations. As a result, the species has been upgraded from critically endangered to endangered, according to the International Union for the Conservation of Nature's Red List, showing that the species is recovering, but it cannot be yet considered out of danger, as the number of individuals is still low. A new problem with rabbits, for example, would put the species back to serious trouble. New challenges have appeared with increasing number of cats and the expansion of the distribution range, including the potential increase of roadkill animals, more competition among individuals and with other species, diseases, the need of connecting the existing population to increase the genetic interchange between them and to reduce the risk of inbreeding. So the work is not yet finished. The conservation of the Iberian lynx, as in most species, is a complex task. That includes many different aspects that needs to be consider, and many lessons should be learned from this successful example. Two clear messages emerge from this iconic species. First, we should have never let the Iberian lynx go that far. It went almost extinct, and resources could have been a waste. More science and less politicians would have been helpful in the beginning. Second, the will and joint effort of all the actors involved have managed to reverse the negative trends and put the Iberian lynx in a better direction. We cannot say that the species is safe, but a much promising future lays ahead for this charismatic cat.
Plant microreserves are one of the most effective practices toward the conservation of plant diversity in small land plots that are of peak value in terms of plant richness, endemicity, or rarity. In Mediterranean ecosystems, plant endemicity is linked to either herbaceous or maquis ecosystems, and it is especially relevant in those associated to singular substrates such as sand, salt, gypsum, and rocks rich in heavy metals. The environmental characteristics of those areas, as well as its relatively small size, favor the presence of specialized plant species, very often rare, relict, or endemic. The concept of plant microreserve emerged as a response to the need of legal protection for these microhabitats. The plant microreserves approach arose in Valencia, Spain in 1989 and was first put into practice in 1994 thanks to the LIFE program of the European Union. Plant microreserves are legally defined as areas of small surface size, less than 20 hectares, in order to protect a selected sample of the main population of the rarest endemic or threatened species, and to establish a continuously monitored network. Within plant microreserves, extraction of plant individuals as well as substrate is forbidden, but traditional land uses are allowed. All must have management plan. A significant difference with other protected areas is that they cannot be declared without the consent of landowners. Therefore, they don't generate any expropriation right. Nowadays, the Valencia network of microreserves comprises 312 plant microreserves in 2,468 hectares and harbors no less than 28,032 population of 2,036 species. That is 58.3% of the Valencian vascular flora. The plant microreserves are compatible with large protected areas, including natural parks. Recent works demonstrated that the network of plant microreserve increases the number of plant species with territorial protection. The project of Valencian plant microreserve has been exported to other Spanish regions as well as to other European regions and countries, such as Cyprus, Greece, and Bulgaria, inspiring the establishment of similar figures enlarged to wild fauna and other natural elements, for example in Lithuania.